Day 8. In Paya, our guide took us to a relative's house, near which he said we could stay the night. I noticed that Pay knew a lot of people in that village, with whom he spoke in the Chaco language. When we finished setting up our tents, it was already Tuesday, July 11th. We all knew that Pay would not continue guiding us to Yavisa, a city about 50 kilometers from Paya. Before we retired Pay, he asked Caesar to photograph the old map he was carrying, which showed some trails and an old rudimentary road that, in ancient times, was used by mining companies. We could find a branch of this abandoned road about 25 kilometers further on, heading northwest through the forest, until close to the village of Union Chaco. From this location, and still using the same road, we could continue to Yavisa, avoiding inhospitable sections of the forest. Looking at the map, it was clear that, to the closest point on the road, we would have to cross several rivers, the same happening along the precarious road to Yavisa. Pay said that more recent migrants were preferring trails through the forest to taking the road, as this was a longer route and was more likely to be policed. Finally, upon receiving payment for the service performed, he said that he recommended that we rest for a day in Paya, taking the opportunity to buy some food and get to know a little of the local population who, more than him, knew about the movement between the village and the city. Pan American Highway. Pay went to stay with his relatives, and, at dawn, we found out that he had already left for Colombia. In the morning, I met Pay's cousin, who invited me into his house. The man, speaking in strange, sometimes incomprehensible Spanish, said he was intrigued by the large number of people who, since 2020, had passed through the village of Paya. He said that the vast majority were Venezuelans, and that they arrived very depleted and sometimes had to spend several days recovering before resuming their journey. I then asked if he agreed with Pay's advice about taking the Union Chaco road, and he confirmed, saying that it was a longer route, but easier and safer. I asked about someone to replace Pay and about the possibility of finding bandits to Yavisa, and he said that we should walk at the times recommended by Pay, avoiding the hot sun. Regarding the guide, the man said that there were 2 young people who did this work, but that they were currently in Panama City. I took advantage of the day to make some notes and, with my fellow travelers, look for food that we could take. In a small shop, we found cheese, salted meat, sausage, banana raisins, and, in the same place, we had a good fish broth. We agreed to continue our journey in the early hours of the following day, at the time stipulated by Pay. During the afternoon, we dispersed. Me, Paco, and Caesar went to the banks of the Chicha River, which originates in the eastern border mountain range and flows west, towards the Pacific Ocean. There we saw many fishermen returning with their canoes full of fish. Fishing and banana and coffee plantations are the main source of food for residents. At the end of the afternoon, we were still walking along the riverbank, when we saw Alex, the Argentinian, in the company of a beautiful young woman. For almost an hour, we walked along 2 small white sand beaches. In one of these, we found Juan and Marcos, who had just taken a shower. Marcos said that he had been missing a real shower for some time, a situation that distressed everyone in our group, because, on the days of the journey, we used handkerchiefs and damp cloths as if they were showers. In some streams, we took the opportunity to bathe and wash our heads, which would otherwise be more complicated. At the end of the afternoon, we started to return to our tents and, in the same place as before, Alex and the same young woman from before were still talking, smiling. Day 9. Wednesday, July 12th, the day dawned with a wind that shook our tents. It was a few minutes after 4 when we started to break camp, and at that moment, we saw Alex approaching, who seemed, only then, to be returning to his tent. The Argentinian, noticing that we were storing our stuff, came to us and said that he had decided to stay in Paya for some time, and that he would do so at the request of Marina, the young woman we had seen with him before. Alex said that he needed to detox from the world he had left, that he was tired of computers, chores, cell phones, inflation, competition, and so many depressed people. He felt that Little Paya could be the perfect place for this, and there he would help Marina on the banana plantation left by her father, who had recently passed away, and would stay in a room in the house where the young woman lived with her mother. Alex gave Caesar his GPS and a map that Marina had given him, and which showed the road abandoned by the miners and previously suggested by Pei. This map contained several coordinates that Alex had included in the GPS route memory. He instructed us to use the device, saving its battery, but said that it could be recharged by simply exposing it to the sun. Alex gathered his things and, wishing us good luck, said that he had everyone's references and that one day would try to contact us. He said goodbye and headed to Marina's house. The morning light was already visible when we left Paya, following a trail towards the closest coordinates of the abandoned road. We came to see countless other trails, but now, guided by the GPS, we headed northwest, immersed in a dense forest, which often surprised us with the sounds and the loss of signal from the device. So close and closed were the tops of the old Darién trees. As always, we would walk for approximately 4 hours. 3 hours later, I estimate that we walked for about 10 kilometers, when we arrived at a river that the map indicated was the Pukiru, a drainage that marks the middle of the stretch to the abandoned road, before which, we would still find the Kapiti River. As we learned from Pei, before crossing, we looked from the riparian forest to see if there was any movement nearby, which we followed until we chose the best place for our crossing. And we did this in a small rapid. Although it was cloudy, by mid-morning the heat was strong, and we decided, after crossing, to take advantage of the river for a swim. Before setting up our tents, which we would do in a place further away from the river channel, we realized that that stretch was not navigable, and we felt calmer about the possible approach of a boat. Downstream of the rapid, the accumulation of rocks formed a natural pool of crystal-clear waters, a scene that made me think about Alex, and perhaps also enjoy nature a little more. But, when I looked at the 4 remaining companions in the group and the urgency that drove them, I returned to the reality of migrants and their dreams. In the early afternoon, we had a good lunch, thanks to the food purchased in Paya, dried shavings of a delicious fish fillet and banana raisins. That afternoon, only the sounds of the forest and mosquitoes ended our day, which we took the opportunity to talk about our past lives and our plans. 4 of us only had one destination in mind, and, as for me, the youngest of the group, I must admit that, in those days, I had no desire to get beyond Mexico. I had left Uruguay during the winter holidays, but I was willing to stop the pharmacy course I was studying in the 4th academic semester. Maybe it was time for me to rethink that, but once again, Alex inhabited my thoughts with admiration. The Argentine proved to be capable of quick decision-making, activating a special type of courage that is necessary when you want to change your life and leave all afflictions, anxieties, and resentments in the past.